The young and the restless spoilers. Audra had once made a solemn promise to Nate, a promise that she would never again become entangled with Holden. That vow, echoing with the sincerity of a love once cherished, was meant to be the shield protecting Nate's heart and their shared future. But promises, like fragile glass, shatter all too easily under the weight of darker impulses. And in the labyrinth of deceit and hidden agendas that had long festered behind closed doors, Audra's resolve was quickly eroded by the sinister allure of secrets. In the hushed corridors of power and betrayal, Audra now found herself bound to Holden by more than just fate. Their relationship was a tangled web of clandestine meetings, whispered conspiracies, and shared ambitions that ran far deeper than either cared to admit. Audra's secret liaison with Holden was not born of passion alone. It was intricately tied to a dangerous mission that had been set in motion long before she even realized the full extent of its ramifications. Holden, a man whose reputation for cruelty and manipulation was as well known as the dark rumors that surrounded him, had issued a chilling command. With cold precision, he ordered Audra to dismantle the burgeoning relationship between Nate and Damien, as well as the tenuous alliance with Amy. His directive was unambiguous: these individuals, who once embodied hope and loyalty, must be torn apart. Holden's rationale was shrouded in mystery, a twisted logic that demanded that Nate and Damien, along with Amy, never stand side by side. His motives were not revealed to Audra, and though she knew better than to question the orders of someone so feared, an inner voice snagged at her with doubts and guilt. For Nate, forgiveness had come as a bittersweet relief. After years of heartache and betrayal, he had chosen to forgive Audra, urging her to be honest and loyal, hoping that transparency would bridge the gap between them and pave the way for a future filled with possibility. Nate's love was earnest, his heart laid bare in the hope that Audra would abandon the shadows of her past misdeeds and step into the light of their shared destiny. He envisioned a life where truth reigned and where their bond could grow unimpeded by secrets. Yet, deep inside, Nate was painfully aware that Audra harbored other ambitions. She never intended to become his wife or to commit herself fully to the life he so meticulously planned for them. The fragility of their relationship was brutally exposed one fateful day. Nate, haunted by suspicions and determined to understand the enigmatic forces at play, found himself lurking near a closed door in a quiet corner of their shared residence. There, fate intervened in the most unkind manner possible. Huddled in whispered conversation, Audra and Holden were plotting their next move, a scheme that targeted not only Nate's trust but also the intricate web of relationships he had so carefully nurtured. As Nate listened intently, his heart sank with every word that passed between them. The conspiratorial dialogue revealed a meticulous plan, one that aimed to sow discord between him and Damien, fracturing the fragile alliances that held their world together. The shock of betrayal cut deep. Nate's mind raced as he pieced together the implications of their secret meeting. Their plan was not a mere personal vendetta, it was a calculated strike at the very foundation of his inner circle, intended to pit friends and loved ones against each other until nothing remained but chaos and mutual hatred. With every sinister detail that spilled forth, Nate's pain and anger grew, tempered by the bitter sting of disappointment. How could Audra, the one he had once trusted implicitly, conspire with Holden, an infamous figure known for his malevolent schemes, to undermine everything they had built together? Holden's malevolence was well known to all who crossed his path, yet even among his many detractors, the precise reasons behind his relentless pursuit of destruction remained shrouded in mystery. His personal vendetta against Nate and the alliances he cherished seemed to be driven by forces and hidden motives that no one could decipher. Was it a desperate bid for power? A twisted sense of retribution for past wrongs? Or was it simply the manifestation of a darker nature that delighted in watching lives unravel? Whatever the underlying reason, Holden's actions were calculated to ensure that the bonds between Nate, Damien, and Amy would be irrevocably broken. Despite the searing pain of betrayal, Nate resolved not to expose the nefarious plot publicly. Instead, he chose a path of silent retribution. He decided to let Audra face the consequences of her actions on her own terms, allowing her to feel the full weight of her betrayal without the interference of his wrath in the public eye. In his heart, Nate knew that by holding on to his secrets and planning a methodical revenge, he was reclaiming a measure of control over a situation that had once seemed destined to destroy him. With a steely determination, he began to craft a meticulous plan, a counterstrike that would not only serve as a lesson for Audra but also restore the balance of trust and loyalty that had been so brutally upset. In the quiet aftermath of that overheard conversation, Nate's world was transformed. Every facet of his life was now tinged with the cold clarity of betrayal. The person he had once loved, the person who had vowed to stand by him through thick and thin, was revealed to be a pawn in a larger, more sinister game. And while Nate's heart ached with sorrow and disillusionment, a fierce resolve took root within him. His mind, already burdened by the ghosts of past grievances, now found focus in the pursuit of retribution. A pursuit that promised to dismantle the web of deceit that Holden and Audra had so carefully spun. As the days turned into weeks, Nate set his plan in motion with the precision of a master strategist. He knew that revenge was a dangerous game, one where every move had to be calculated and every ally chosen with care. His approach was not one of reckless abandon but of cold, measured precision. He began by subtly isolating the key figures in the conspiracies that threatened his circle, ensuring that the seeds of distrust were sown among them. Meanwhile, he quietly gathered evidence and forged alliances with those who remained loyal to the values of honesty and integrity. Each step of his plan was executed in silence, hidden from the prying eyes of those who would seek to undermine him further. Yet, as Nate moved deeper into his plans of revenge, he couldn't shake the bittersweet memories of what once was a time when Audra's smile had been the light in his darkness, when her words had promised a future of shared dreams and unwavering commitment. Now, that promise lay in ruins, scattered like shattered glass on the floor of their once happy home. His heart, though hardened by betrayal, still held a flicker of hope, a hope that one day, the truth would emerge and that even in the depths of deception, justice would prevail. For Audra, the consequences of her actions were slowly catching up with her. The more she conformed to Holden's orders and the more she betrayed the trust that Nate had placed in her, the more she found herself ensnared in a web from which escape seemed impossible. Every whispered word, every secret meeting with Holden, pulled her deeper into a vortex of moral compromise and regret. And while she clung to the hope that there might be a way out, a chance to redefine her destiny and perhaps even reclaim some semblance of honor, the path ahead was fraught with peril and uncertainty. In the midst of this intricate game of shadows and retribution, Holden remained the enigmatic force behind the scenes, a puppet master whose motives continued to baffle even the most astute observers. His insistence on dismantling Nate's inner circle, on ensuring that Nate and Damien, along with Amy, would never again find solace in each other's company, hinted at a personal vendetta that was as deep as it was inscrutable. The dark undercurrents of his ambition suggested that his actions were not merely the product of a vengeful heart but of a calculated desire to reshape the dynamics of power in a way that left no room for compassion or trust. And so, the stage was set for a confrontation that would reverberate through the lives of all involved. Nate, with his quiet determination and carefully laid plans of revenge, stood on the precipice of a new chapter, a chapter where the line between right and wrong blurred into shades of gray. Audra, torn between her own ambitions and the remnants of a love that had once defined her, faced the inexorable march of destiny with a heavy heart. And Holden, the ever-mysterious architect of chaos, continued to weave his web of deceit, his true motives hidden behind a mask of cruelty and cunning. In the days and nights that followed, each character would come to realize that in the dangerous dance of secrets, betrayal, and retribution, there were no simple heroes or villains, only people caught in the relentless tide of fate, each struggling to maintain their humanity amid the darkness. Nate's plan of revenge, though meticulously crafted, was a testament to the fragile resilience of the human spirit, a spirit that, even in the face of profound betrayal, refused to be entirely crushed. The story of Nate, Audra, Holden, and the tangled alliances around them is a haunting reminder that trust, once broken, leaves scars that may never fully heal. In the silent spaces between whispered conspiracies and bold declarations of loyalty, the truth of their intertwined fates continues to unfold, a narrative of love and loss, of betrayal and retribution. and of the enduring hope that even the deepest wounds might one day be mended. As the final pieces of Nate's plan slowly fell into place, the atmosphere grew heavy with anticipation. In a world where every secret had its price and every betrayal threatened to upend the delicate balance of relationships, one thing was certain: the quest for truth and justice was a perilous journey, and only time would reveal whether the forces of loyalty and honesty could ultimately triumph over the darkness of deceit. This narrative not only incorporates Audra's broken promise, her secret involvement with Holden, and his sinister orders to sever Nate's connections with Damien and Amy, but also delves deep into the emotional turmoil and intricate machinations that define their perilous world. Nate now finds himself alone, a solitary figure determined to rebuild his life on his own terms. The betrayal and heartbreak he once endured have forged in him a steely resolve to live for himself, leaving behind the ruins of shattered trust. With a heart hardened by loss and eyes set on a future free of deceit, he is resolved that Holden and Audra, the toxic duo whose actions once tore his world apart, must leave Genoa immediately. The decision was not made lightly. For too long, Nate had clung to the hope that Audra could change, that beneath the layers of deception, the person he once loved might still be redeemed. However, as time passed, it became painfully clear that while Nate was ready to let go of her troubled past, Audra herself was incapable of transforming her very nature. The allure of power and manipulation that Holden instilled in her was something she had grown too accustomed to, something that had become an inseparable part of who she was. Amid this turmoil, Tucker's return to Genoa promised to shake the already unstable ground even further. Tucker, a man who had long observed the intricate dynamics behind Audra's actions, was known for his keen insight and unwavering sense of integrity. In stark contrast to Nate's quiet resolve, Tucker was a force of unyielding honesty, prepared to expose the true nature of those who had thrived on betrayal. He knew Audra all too well, her history, her motivations, and the darker inclinations that had led her down a path of manipulation and self-destruction. Tucker resolved that it was time for the world to see Audra as she truly was, unmasked and vulnerable in her own toxicity. The impending collision between Tucker and Holden was inevitable. Their enmity had been simmering beneath the surface for years, a simmering hatred fueled by conflicting ambitions and a mutual disdain for the other's methods. Holden, with his relentless pursuit of personal power and control, had always found Tucker's uncompromising morality to be an irritation. Tucker, on the other hand, could not abide the manipulative schemes that Holden so casually orchestrated. Their disdain for each other had grown into a deep-seated rivalry, and now, with the stakes higher than ever, their conflict was set to escalate into an all-out war. Tucker's previous attempts to rescue Audra from the clutches of Holden's toxic influence had been met with resistance. He had watched in despair as the woman he once cared about sank deeper into the abyss of deceit, her true nature obscured by the very lies she propagated. Despite his best efforts, Audra had clung to the perilous relationship, unable or unwilling to sever the ties that bound her to a man whose darkness corrupted her potential for redemption. Tucker's return signified not only a challenge to Holden's authority but also a chance to confront the painful truth about Audra, a truth that Nate was increasingly ready to accept, however bitter it might be. As Genoa braced for the fallout, Nate's strategy became clear. He would methodically dismantle the poisonous alliance that had once promised him so much pain. With resolute determination, he began gathering allies among those who had grown weary of the perpetual cycle of betrayal. He reached out quietly to friends and family who, like him, yearned for a future unmarred by the manipulations of individuals like Holden and Audra. Nate's plan was not one of overt confrontation, rather, it was a carefully crafted campaign of isolation. He aimed to cut off their access to the inner circles of power in Genoa, to strip them of the influence that had allowed them to thrive on discord and deception. Meanwhile, Tucker wasted no time in laying bare the hidden chapters of Audra's past. In hushed conversations and private meetings, he recounted the many instances where her actions had betrayed not only personal trust but the collective integrity of their close-knit community. His revelations, delivered with a mixture of regret and resolve, painted a stark picture of a woman ensnared by the seductive promises of a man like Holden, a man whose cruelty was only matched by his ambition. Tucker's accounts left little room for ambiguity. Audra, in all her complexity, was incapable of change. Her actions had always been driven by a desire for control and power, a desire that had ultimately cost her the love and respect of those who once believed in her. The tension in Genoa grew palpably as whispers of these betrayals circulated among its residents. Nate's quiet determination to purge the city of toxic influences resonated with many who had grown tired of the constant undercurrent of strife. In contrast, Holden's once unassailable position began to crumble as Tucker's revelations exposed the cracks in his carefully constructed facade. The city, which had long been a stage for clandestine power plays and shadowy alliances, was now poised on the brink of an upheaval that promised to redraw its very map of loyalties and enmities. In the midst of this storm, Nate's loneliness transformed into a symbol of resilience. No longer would he be the victim of circumstances beyond his control, he was now the architect of his destiny. His eyes, once filled with a glimmer of hope for a unified future with Audra, now shone with a cold determination. Every decision, every calculated move, was geared toward ensuring that neither Holden nor Audra would ever again threaten the sanctity of what was left of his world. Nate's journey was no longer about reclaiming what was lost, it was about forging a future free from the toxic influences of the past. The stage was thus set for an explosive confrontation. Tucker's return had ignited old rivalries and stirred dormant grudges, pitting him directly against Holden, a man whose very presence was a reminder of the betrayal that had once shattered so many lives. Their ensuing conflict promised to be a spectacle of clashing ideals, a battle where every word and every action carried the weight of years of pent-up resentment. Tucker, with his unwavering moral compass, was determined to see justice done, even if it meant tearing down the very fabric of the alliances that had once held Genoa together. In this maelstrom of retribution and revelation, the city of Genoa stood as a silent witness to the transformation of its inhabitants. Nate, now resolute and independent, had embraced a path that rejected the entanglements of past deceptions. His mission was clear: to force Holden and Audra out of his life and to cleanse his surroundings of the insidious influence that had long marred the community. And as Tucker prepared to confront Holden in what promised to be an epic clash of wills, a sense of inevitability permeated the air. A certainty that the coming days would be marked by fierce battles, bitter truths, and the slow, arduous process of healing. As the conflict escalated, every whispered secret, every unveiled betrayal, only reinforced Nate's determination. In his solitude, he found strength, and in his loneliness, he discovered the power to stand alone against forces that had once seemed insurmountable. The future of Genoa, a city long steeped in shadows, was on the cusp of a new dawn, a dawn where the toxic reign of deception would be replaced by a hard-earned peace, and where the promise of a better tomorrow would finally outshine the ghosts of a painful past. And so, with the weight of betrayal heavy on his shoulders and the resolve to forge a future free from toxic entanglements, Nate marched forward. The road ahead was fraught with challenges, but he was determined to see it through. In his heart, he carried the memory of what had been lost and the hope that, one day, the scars of betrayal would give way to the promise of genuine healing, a promise that held the key to a future unburdened by the lies of yesterday.